tell you that I have lost control of the situation, but I'm not sure I ever had it to begin with. It has become clear to me that I was careless with accepting Brian into my home, and I'm now paying the price. A lot has happened in the short time since my first post. I'll start with the morning after. In all my life, I have never been so happy to see daylight beaming through my bedroom window. It had been hours since Brian fell silent, but I had not left my bed yet. Somehow the thought of daylight seemed to be my saving grace, and I would be damned if I was going to move before then. Tired and delirious, I had not noticed that pleasant aroma right away. All at once, I got a whiff of something delicious, bacon frying in a pan. At first, I was hesitant to leave my room, but I decided that if Brian was cooking, he may be distracted. After a few minutes of contemplation, I decided to walk to the kitchen to see what was going on. "Good morning, sunshine," Brian said cheerily as soon as I turned the corner, entering his view. "I have to go, but I made you some bacon. I hope you like this stuff." The smile on his face, the tone in his voice, it threw me off guard. I was expecting a deranged man, but I got the happy Brian that I first met when he walked into my home. How is he so damn charming? "Hey, I wanted to ask you something," I began to say, rubbing my eyes. "Are you doing okay, man? You kind of freaked me out last night." Brian smiled back at me while he filled a plate with food before setting the pan back down. "I just love this place. Gotta go. I'll be back later, my man." Brian said this as he made his way to the door. "Wait, I haven't even given you a key." Brian had the door closed before I could finish talking to him. What the hell just happened? How did he just disarm me so smoothly? It was as if I didn't say anything about what happened last night. I glanced over at the food on the counter before walking to the living room. Contemplating everything that had happened the night before and today, I sat down on my couch. What if I just locked my door and slid his money under the door, desperately hoping that he would take the hint and leave? Somehow I knew that would not work. I'm ashamed to admit it, but curiosity was getting the better of me. Who was he talking to last night? And how did he know that I was at his door? Against my better judgment, I decided that a trip to the store to buy a nanny cam was going to be my next move. I shot my boss a quick text to let him know I would not be in for work before leaving my house. You would think that any electronics store would carry a nanny cam in stock, but after visiting 3 stores, it seemed as though I was out of luck. Then the idea hit me. I just needed to try a marketplace app. In minutes, I had gotten in contact with the seller and started driving to their house to pick it up. Back in my house, I unboxed the cam. It looked like a white AC to USB adapter. The camera hole in it was tiny. I set it up with an app on my phone and got it to show me a live feed. All I had to do was go into Brian's room and plug it into an outlet. Easier said than done. I stood at his closed door for longer than I'd like to admit. Finally working up the courage to enter, I slowly opened his door. I stopped and listened to make sure that no one was trying to come in through the front door. My heart began to race at the thought of him catching me in the act. Inside his room, I saw his laptop laying on the floor, lid closed and the sleeping bag rolled up in the corner. If I had known better, I would say it looked like nothing strange had happened here at all. It didn't even have that foul smell anymore. After scoping out the outlets in this otherwise empty room, I found one that looked like it would give me the best view. I plugged in the cam and stepped back, trying to decide if it looked innocent enough. I mean, how often do you notice something that small about a room change? My heart stopped at the sound of the front door knob wiggling. Shit, he was already back. Only just managing to close his door in time, I turned around to face the noise. There I stood standing in front of Brian's door as he walked into the house. Hey Brian, back so soon?" I said nervously. How stupid did I look just standing in front of his bedroom door? "My man. So, do you mind moving out of the way? I'd like to go to my room now," Brian said, seemingly completely oblivious to how strange it was that I was just standing there. "Oh, yeah, sure. My bad," I said sheepishly as I moved aside. Before I could think of another thing to say, he had already closed the door behind him. It was getting late, so I decided to just head back to my room. I must have sat on my bed for a good few hours before I worked up the courage to open up the cam app. On my screen, the video feed came to life, showing me the entire room with Brian in it. I felt so dirty spying on another person like this, but I had to know what he was up to. Sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, he sat there with his computer in his lap. Things went on like that for another hour or two, just sitting there, browsing the web with a look of disinterest. Glancing over at my iPad to check the time, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. Movement. quickly looked back to my phone screen, just in time to catch him suddenly drop his arms to his side. There was a loud thud as he slammed his head back into the wall behind him. He appeared to now be staring at the ceiling. What was that smell? Sour milk? This time I could smell it in my own room. My hands started to tremble as I forced myself to keep my eyes on the feed. The air around me grew thick, making it harder to breathe. In a flash, Brian began to convulse, sharply turning his head to the right repeatedly. My heart rate skyrocketed. It looked like he might snap his neck with how hard he was flicking it. Then, as quickly as it started, he stopped moving, before closing his eyes and slowly opening his mouth wide. He began to cry. His expression dropped, face quickly flooded with tears. The same desperate cries from last night were back, and louder than ever. My eyes were locked to my screen, fingers turning white from how hard I was squeezing my phone. What the hell was wrong with him? Before I had time to think on it any longer, he stopped crying and darted his eyes directly at the nanny cam. It was as if he was staring directly into my soul. I would have gotten up and ran out of my house had I not been paralyzed with fear. With one hand, he grabbed his laptop and threw it hard to his right, smashing it into the wall and making a loud bash. In a very unnatural way, he flopped himself on the floor and began to crawl toward the cam on his stomach. With each pull of his arms, he got closer and closer to it, seething, mouth open and spitting as he did. I could hear my stuttered and hurried breath as he continued to crawl closer. Before I could react, he reached the cam, staring directly into it with one eye and the other. He lifted his head slightly, showing only his mouth on the feed. I shouted loudly as he spoke a single word. Run. I jumped up, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I was no longer paralyzed and I needed to get the fuck out of my house. I shoved my phone in my pocket and ran toward my door. Another loud bash. This time I was sure Brian had just bust through his door. I quickly swung mine open and ran into the hallway. Brian stood there, blocking my only exit. He started walking toward me, head snapping to the right again. Fuck. What the fuck do I do? I turned around and ran back into my room. There had to be something I could use as a weapon. Baseball. I played baseball in high school. I still have my bat. Swinging open my closet door, I spotted that old girl leaning against some boxes. I grabbed it and turned around. Brian was already in my room. He began to laugh hysterically, raising his hands up before lunging at me. I jumped to the side and he missed me. Almost falling over, Brian quickly recovered and turned around. I had already raised my bat and began to swing. It connected with his face, hard. The force of the hit knocked the bat out of my hands and I began to panic. Brian just grinned, laughing harder than ever. This was my chance. He wasn't blocking my path anymore. I turned and sprinted to my front door, fumbling with the lock and deadbolt. Shit. Why can't I unlock it? My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't get it open. My man. Brian shouted across the house, this time in a haunting voice. You can't walk out on me like that. Why the fuck can't I unlock this door? I was in tears at this point, desperate for my hands to cooperate. I could hear Brian's footsteps on the cold tile slowly closing in on me. It's not polite to be a peeping Tom, Jake. Brian's voice was getting louder as he got closer. Just when I was about to give up and face my doom, the lock clicked and the door opened. Not daring to look back, I sprinted through the doorway, out of my house and down the street. I've never ran so hard for so long in my life. After what seemed like forever, my stomach and throat went cold. I was going to be sick. Collapsing to my knees, I vomited repeatedly on the sidewalk. Panting hard, head pounding with the pain, I sat back on my ass and looked behind me. Brian and I followed. As soon as I could manage, I got back up and started walking, to where I did not know, just far from there. I'm sitting in a 24-hour downer as I type this out on my phone. What the fuck do I do now?